Contentions. We've looked at contentions already this year. We looked at them when we did our oral presentations. You had to form one in order to develop an argument. So, what is a contention? What is a contention? If you'd like, you can understand what you think a contention is. Ultimately, a contention is your main point. It's the point that the author is trying to make overall. It's their opinion or their view on a particular issue. We're going to be looking at the electric cars issue, but pretty much anything where you're trying to persuade someone, you have a stance on an issue. It is always the central idea. Every argument that the author uses supports the contention. You always need to identify the writer's contention when you're writing a language analysis. It is vital in your introduction and also for your linking sentences. So at the end of this year, you're going to be writing your own persuasive piece on the electric car tax. So you need to make sure that your contention is logical and factual. It should be difficult to disagree with the logic of the argument. Basically, a good contention should be really clear that you know what you're talking about and that you understand the issue. Conversely, a poor contention is one that's entirely based on emotion. It's a judgment as opposed to having any real argument or strength behind it. An example, reality TV is just trash. If we keep watching this rubbish, we'll lose perspective and won't know what's real and what's not. They should be offering better shows than this. This is exaggerated. It's unrealistic. It's speculation. What evidence do they have that we won't know what's real and what's not? Also, who is this targeted to? Who is the audience? Who do they want to make the change? It's very unclear the overall intention of this contention. When you identify a contention, it's really important to be clear about what the author is saying. When you recognize the author's contention, you're not summarizing what the article is about. You're focusing on what it is they're actually trying to persuade or influence their reader to think about or to believe. Overall, what is their stance? Just before you heard me say the word intention. This is really confusing because they both have the shin sound at the end, but a contention and an intention, while they're interrelated, are not the same thing. So I want you to start thinking, what is the difference between contention and intention? Basically, a contention is a summary of a belief. It's an opinion, it's a main point or a stance of the author. What would the author write if they could only write a tweet about their opinion? In contrast to this, an intention is what the author would like you to do with the information they are presenting. What is the purpose of the piece? What is it that they want you to achieve by sharing their views? So in layman's terms, one is a statement of belief, the other is the intended outcome of stating that belief. When we read an article, it's also really important to make sure you take notice of the language being used. Is it formal language, informal language? Are they using sophisticated language, or is it colloquial, everyday speech? Are they using specific persuasive techniques? What is it they're actually trying to do to position their reader? And also, what is the overall tone of the piece? We'll be going into some of these in a lot more detail as we continue on with the unit. So what exactly does position the reader mean? Well, when you write a persuasive piece, you're ultimately trying to convince your audience to agree with you. So, to do this, they use persuasive devices which manipulate the reader. You need to find these devices in the article, and you need to then explain how it's persuasive. What does it do to position the reader to think, feel, do, or believe? They might use emotive language, attacks. In one we're going to be reading a little later on, I want you to keep your eyes open for complimentary behavior. All right? What does that do? What is the appeal there? And how is that positioned to make the reader think, feel, do, or believe, and also make the author look? So, in other words, how has the writer used tone and persuasive techniques to lead the audience to respond in particular ways? For example, the rhetorical question, What if it was your child? Leads the reader to question if they really are safe and tap into their own concerns for their children. Figuring out how persuasive language has been utilized to position or manipulate a target audience is the key to success in this unit. We're going to have a bit of a quick activity now where I'm going to ask you guys to write a contention. You're going to write 3 contentions. For this one, you're going to have 60 seconds to write anything that comes to mind about one word. We'll then share ideas via the social streams on our class pages about what you thought, your thoughts on, and how you turn them into a contention. Get ready to write. Your word is Indigenous issues. This page is going to be open for 60 seconds. You've got 60 seconds. When I change, time is up. This time, I want you to write a contention which is about 1 sentence long. You're going to have 2 minutes to write anything that comes to mind about the sentence. When you share your ideas, I want you to put your sentence once again up onto the social stream. I'm not going to hold it for 2 minutes. You need to pause for 2 minutes and write. You have 2 minutes and get ready to write. Your sentence is, not everyone can celebrate Australia Day. You have 2 minutes to write a contention and chuck it up on the social stream. Pause the video now for 2 minutes. Okay, last one. You're going to write a contention about a photograph. You'll have 60 seconds to write anything that comes to mind about that photograph. We'll then share these ideas again on the social stream, so turn those thoughts into a contention. Get ready to write. Your photograph is here. Pause this picture for 60 seconds. That was 3 rapid-fire contentions you just wrote. Well done. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to look at an article and we're going to identify contention and intention. There is a booklet on link which you will have been directed to where this article is in that booklet. I've already highlighted it but not annotated fully this article and helped in identifying the contention and intention. So as we read through it, I'm going to just point out some key little things. I might explain why I've highlighted certain sections. And then you're going to use the intention and contention that I've written out for you and put that into your own booklet. We'll be using the same article, Mr. Lupus and myself, when we teach some of these skills to you. So it's an article that you will become familiar with. So this is an opinion. That's the text type. Tax on electric vehicles in South Australia and Victoria would slam the brakes on sales. That's our title. It was written by Trent Zimmerman and it was last modified on Sunday the 22nd of November 2020 at 12:20. The proposed tax on electric vehicles in South Australia and Victoria, and under consideration by other governments of similar proposals, would slam the brakes on their goal of encouraging more drivers to use low-emission vehicles. The proposals are counterintuitive and premature. I've highlighted this because of the language choices. Slam the brakes. It's a bit of a pun because they're talking about cars. And it's counterintuitive and premature. Really clear what this author thinks about the new tax. Our system of taxes and charges is designed to serve a range of purposes. In this case, there are contradictory objectives. On the one hand, road charges and fuel exercises exist in part as a pseudo-user pays levy for the cost of our road network. On the other, tax policies are often designed to change behaviour, to act as either a positive financial encouragement or conversely and more frequently a distinctive for a particular course of a disincentive for a particular course of action. Taxes and charges on electric vehicles must surely be considered in that second category. Proposals to apply new road user charges on electric vehicles send a very strange signal and will set back efforts to reduce emissions from the transport sector. It will have a real impact. The uptake of electric vehicles in Australia is already low, much lower than other nations. What is that? Automatically there we're connecting with patriotism. We're not as good as other nations. Why aren't we doing this? For example, in South Australia, EVs, electric vehicles, make up about 0.1% of cars on the state's roads. There are several reasons why Australians have been hesitant to enter the electric vehicle market. One is cost, and while we will get to price parity for EVs during this decade, we are not there yet. The advantage they do already have are lower running costs. The New South Wales government's electric and hybrid vehicle plan states that EVs offer major benefits over conventional vehicles. For motorists and fleet operators, there are significantly lower fuel and maintenance costs, with charging costs only 25 to 35% that of petrol costs for the average passenger car. These costs of living savings and productivity benefits will flow to households and businesses and to the wider community. Expert opinion there, that's a statement from the New South Wales government, which is assumed to be a very educated group. The New South Wales government is right to identify these advantages, and it would be wrong to imperil them by following the South Australian pathway. They're pitting two states against each other here. In fact, a report by Ernst & Young released in September this year dispels the myths that EVs are a net hit to the Australian economy because drivers don't pay current fuel excises. Instead, the report found that each EV provides an 8,763 net benefit to the economy over a 10-year lifespan, and when accounting for the loss of fuel excise revenue, directly contributing more to government revenue per vehicle than petrol does or diesel-based vehicles. There are significant economic benefits EVs deliver in meeting emissions reduction goals, as well as improving air and noise pollution in our cities. Our goal of zero net emissions cannot be met without major changes in the transport sector. State and federal governments are investing funds to promote EVs, from charging stations to research. So they're putting money into promoting it. So why are they taxing it is the sort of concept that's being presented here. The federal government is preparing its own low emissions vehicle strategy, and agencies like ARENA have been at the forefront of supporting and developing the EV market in Australia. With funding flowing from all levels of government, new state charges on EVs smack of giving with one hand while taking with the other. Cliche. So instead of making electric vehicles and other future technologies such as hydro-fueled transport more expensive, we should be looking at developing the EV market with lower costs while it matures. Options include, at the federal level, removing the luxury car tax on low-emission vehicles, and at the state level, cost relief on tolls and other charges. Boom, I have highlighted that and squared that off because right there, that is the intention. That is what this author wants to happen. They would like to develop the lower costs for the EV market. They think that it needs to happen now, and they've even provided models of what could happen to do that. Overseas experiences prove that government incentives to increase EV uptake do work, especially when the market is small, like in Australia. Once again, comparing us to international competitors. Now, this is what I was alluding to earlier. The South Australian and New South Wales governments are standout leaders among the states in developing plans to reduce emissions through the deployment of new technology. But they're introducing a tax, so why have you complimented them? Keeping your audience on side is really important for some authors. They don't intend to completely shut someone down, but instead want to encourage them to become part of the solution. Electric vehicles fueled by renewable electricity have to be part of the solution. Now is not the time for them to take the foot off the accelerator. Once again, closing with a pun. Connecting with their audience, we're talking about cars, and they're slowing down the improvements being made to the car system. So Trent Zimmerman is a Liberal MP and a federal member in North Sydney. Does that give you